I knew I was going to quit the moment Bryce called me buddy in front of the entire exec team, right after stealing my idea for the third time. Let me back up a little. My name's Matt. I'm 29, and until a few months ago, I worked as a marketing analyst for a startup called Bravura in Austin, Texas. Think open plan offices, cold brew on tap, neon signs that say hustle harder, the whole startup cliche checklist. On paper, it looked like a dream. In reality, it was the kind of place where ambition went to die under a pile of ego, unpaid overtime, and passive-aggressive Slack messages. The story I'm about to tell you isn't just about quitting a toxic job. It's about what happens when someone pushes you too far and thinks they'll never face consequences. Spoiler, they do. And I made sure of it. I joined Bravura because I was desperate. I'd been laid off from a cushy but dull job at a major insurance firm during a round of pandemic-era cuts. The severance was decent, but I burned through it faster than I'd like to admit. Between rent, student loans, and helping my younger sister with her tuition, I was tapped out by month 4. So when Bravura's recruiter messaged me on LinkedIn with the whole "we're revolutionizing brand analytics" pitch and a salary that, while lower than my last, was competitive, I took the bait. I should have known it was a trap the moment I walked in on my first day, and no one, not even HR, knew who I was. I literally had to sit on the lobby couch with my laptop for an hour until someone could figure out where I was supposed to sit. Not even a desk was ready. I ended up sharing a table with a UX intern named Travis, who chewed ice like it was a sport. But you ignore that stuff when you're trying to stay afloat, you know? At first, things weren't terrible. I liked working with data, and my role gave me a lot of autonomy. I started building reports and frameworks that made our campaign tracking faster, cleaner. People started using them. Hell, Bryce started using them. Bryce Carson, our VP of marketing, was the kind of guy who wore Allbirds and called everyone chief or rock star, even if he forgot your name. He had perfect teeth, a podcast voice, and the uncanny ability to spin even the most basic idea into a 20-minute TED Talk on brand synergy. Bryce didn't just love the spotlight, he needed it. And he had no shame in taking credit for other people's work if it meant making himself look better in front of the CEO. This former finance bro named Darren, who thought culture meant ping pong tables and an unpaid social media intern. The first time Bryce took one of my reports and pitched it like it was his own, I let it slide. Honestly, I was kind of flattered. I figured maybe he'd mention me in passing. Give a nod? Nothing. No shout out. No Slack message. Just a smile and a great work team that made my stomach twist. Still, I stayed quiet. You don't want to be that guy 2 months into a new job, calling out your boss in front of everyone. But it kept happening. It got worse. I'd spend hours building dashboards, structuring campaign flows, even writing copy sometimes, only to have Bryce repackage it, slap his name on the deck, and present it to the execs like he personally birthed the ideas while doing yoga on a mountaintop. Once, I caught him literally copying and pasting my Slack messages into an email to Darren. I scrolled up and saw my exact words. We should be measuring microconversions, not just CTR. Word for word, still, I stayed. Because, again, I needed the paycheck. And deep down, I kept hoping maybe someone would notice. The office was a weird mix of fake friendliness and quiet fear. Like, people would post wholesome GIFs in group chats, but then throw each other under the bus in one-on-ones with Bryce or Stacy, the HR director who always looked like she was 5 minutes away from crying, but had mastered the "I hear you" face. I made one real friend during my time there. Jonah Patel? A soft-spoken data analyst with a dry sense of humor and a tendency to whisper hilarious things during meetings. He saw it, too. Bryce's ego is like a sinkhole. He told me one afternoon when we were hiding in the stairwell during a fire drill no one had warned us about. It just swallows everything nearby. We laughed, but I could feel myself cracking inside. The final straw came 6 months in. I'd spent 2 weeks building a pitch for a new tool that tracked brand sentiment using real-time social data. It was legit, clean UX mockups, early-stage code from a dev friend of mine, even potential pricing tiers. I presented it in a smaller team huddle. Bryce nodded the whole time, asked a few softball questions, then said, "Let me run this upstairs." The next day, I joined a Zoom call late and froze. There was Bryce, screen sharing my deck, my slides, my notes, even the tool's working name, Pulse Track, which was written in the file metadata under my name. And there he was, walking the execs through every single slide like he invented it during his morning jog. He even made a joke about how the inspiration came to me while I was watching TikTok. I sat there in that virtual room, muted and invisible, and just watched. When the meeting ended, Bryce messaged me privately. "Nice job helping prep that deck, buddy. Appreciate the hustle." Buddy. That was it. That single word snapped something in me. I closed my laptop and just sat in my apartment, staring at the wall. No music, no TV, just quiet. That night, I opened a new Google Doc. The title? Operation Goodbye Buddy. And that's when the planning started. No more being quiet. No more letting it slide. If Bryce wanted a show, I'd give him one. But I wasn't going to storm out or rage quit in front of everyone. That would be satisfying for like 10 minutes. And then I'd just be another burned bridge, another LinkedIn sob story. No, this had to be smarter, colder, slower. Because some people only learn the hard way, and I was done being polite. By the time Monday rolled around, I was back at my desk acting like nothing had happened. Bryce strutted into the office with that same stupid grin like he just nailed a TED Talk. Everyone clapped him on the back and said things like, "Nice pitch, man," and "Game changer move." I didn't say a word because I'd already started laying the groundwork. Let me be clear, I didn't want to nuke the place out of bitterness. I mean, yeah, I was angry, furious even, but it was more than that. It was the slow realization that this place was never going to change. That if I didn't do something, I'd be stuck in this loop, always one step away from recognition, always 2 steps behind someone louder. So I started documenting every Slack message, every file name, every timestamp on shared Google Docs. I made copies of everything, stored on an encrypted drive under a folder named Old Taxes because, well, no one clicks that. I also started recording meetings on my phone. Not all of them, just the key ones. Like the time Bryce told Talia to water down a competitor comparison deck because the client doesn't need to know we're behind. Or when he admitted during a one-on-one that he didn't bother reading half the reports he presented to Darren. Speaking of Talia, that was another gut punch. Talia Vance and I weren't best friends or anything, but we got along. She worked in content strategy and sat across from me. We'd trade memes, vent during lunch, even made plans to grab drinks a couple of times. She was sharp, funny, and seemed like one of the few normal people in the building. So when I confided in her, just a little, about how I felt Bryce was stepping on my work, I thought she'd get it. Instead, she went straight to him. I found out a week later when Bryce pulled me aside and gave me this whole condescending speech about maintaining team unity and not spreading negativity. It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Calm, smug, like he knew I couldn't do a damn thing about it. That night, I deleted Talia from every social I'd added her on. Lesson learned. The hardest part was pretending to still care. I had to sit through meetings, smile during brainstorms, even cheer on other people's campaigns while slowly building my exit strategy behind the scenes. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. Instead, I played the long game. Jonah started helping more, quietly. He never asked questions, just nodded when I told him I was backing up files or needed him to run a few extra data pulls. I think he knew something was up, but he never pried. In his own way, he was giving me cover. One night, we stayed late together, something that wasn't unusual for us, considering Bravora's grind culture. I looked over and asked, "You ever think about just walking out?" He didn't even look up from his screen. Every week, sometimes twice on Mondays. We both laughed, but there was this heavy silence afterward, like we were both thinking about how close we were to actually doing it. I told him I was planning to leave soon. He just nodded and said, "If you're gonna go, don't go quiet." Now, here's where things got risky. I created a resignation letter that looked real. Not overly dramatic, just professional, polite, with the usual corporate fluff. After careful consideration, I've decided to pursue other opportunities. Blah, blah, blah. Then I dated it for a week later and saved it to the shared drive by accident. The trick was in the file name, Matt Decker notice final.docx. Why? Because nobody can resist opening a file labeled final. It's digital catnip. Within 2 hours, Stacy from HR accidentally messaged me. Hey Matt, just curious about the doc on the shared drive. Want to chat before anything's official? Bingo, I played dumb. Oh, didn't mean for that to be visible. Let's talk next week. I watched as the office energy shifted. Suddenly, people were nicer. Bryce asked if I wanted to grab lunch, which he hadn't done in months. Talia even brought me a coffee. Like that one act of kindness could erase the betrayal. And Stacy? She invited me to a one-on-one meeting just to check in. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't planning to resign next week. I was planning to blow the whole damn thing up. The trigger moment came during a Tuesday strategy meeting. Bryce started presenting a new client acquisition plan using PulseTrack. My project. My framework. But this time, I had proof. He called it a new internal tool we're piloting and gave zero credit to anyone. I looked around the room. Some people stared at their laptops. Others nodded along like sheep. Darren, of course, smiled like Bryce had just pitched him a unicorn startup. After the meeting, I walked up to Bryce and said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "Hey, how'd you end up building PulseTrack? Thought you said you didn't do back-end stuff." He paused, blinked, then gave me this plastic grin. "Oh, it was a team effort." I nodded. "Yeah, I just didn't realize team effort meant taking my code and rebranding it." He laughed like I was joking. "Don't be dramatic, buddy." Buddy? Again, that night I uploaded the full PulseTrack design folder, metadata, build notes, devlogs, to a public Dropbox link. I also uploaded a 10-minute audio clip of Bryce admitting he didn't write a single line of it and saying, quote, "Matt's too green to pitch a room. He does the grunt work." Then I sent an anonymous tip to TechLeech, a small but spicy industry blog known for exposing startup scandals. Subject line, "VP at Bravura claims credit for employees' proprietary work, receipts attached." I didn't sleep that night. My stomach flipped every 5 minutes. My hands shook when I brushed my teeth, but it was done, and there was no taking it back. The next day? Chaos. Emails flying. Phones buzzing. HR meetings all morning. At 10:42 a.m., Bryce was escorted out of the building by Stacy and one of the IT guys. He didn't even get to grab his Patagonia vest. No one said it officially, of course, but everyone knew. The Dropbox link had gone viral inside the company. Someone had even screen recorded the audio and posted it in a Slack channel under the title, "Guess Who's Not So Original After All?" By noon, Darren sent out a company-wide message filled with phrases like internal investigation, core values, and committed to transparency. It was too little, too late. I walked into Stacy's office that afternoon. She looked up, hollow-eyed, probably hadn't eaten lunch. "I assume you know what this is about," I said, handing her a printed copy of my actual resignation letter, dated that day. She didn't even argue. "Best of luck," she said, really. I believed her, in a weird way. Maybe she'd just been surviving too. When I packed up my stuff, I didn't expect a standing ovation, but I also didn't expect what happened next. Jonah walked over and handed me a folded piece of paper. Inside was a sketch of a rocket taking off with the caption, "Sometimes you've got to leave orbit to find peace." I nearly teared up. On the back, he'd written his number. "I don't know what you're planning next," he said, "but let me know if you want help building it." As I walked out of Bravura for the last time, past the glass doors and cold brew taps, past the fake plants and inspirational quotes on the wall, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Weightless, free, but not empty. Because this time I didn't just walk away. I walked away on my terms. And I took the smug little king of the castle down with me. I didn't expect it to feel so quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Just still. The kind of silence where your body hasn't caught up to the fact that something's over. I was sitting at a coffee shop on South Congress, 20 minutes after handing in my real resignation, just staring into my latte like it might blink first. The place was packed with people on laptops, pretending to work on screenplays or startups, while I sat there trying to figure out if I felt victorious or just tired. Probably both. But I wasn't done. Not yet. See, Bryce getting fired was the pre-show. The real revenge, that was still coming. Let me explain something first. I wasn't trying to go full scorched earth. I didn't want lawsuits or drama that dragged on for years. I wanted a clean break. But I also wanted everyone who ever told me to be a team player while stabbing me in the back to feel the heat. and they would, because I knew something none of them realized yet. Bravura was about to get audited, not by the IRS. Worse? Back when I was still working there, I stumbled onto something weird while checking campaign compliance. It was late. I'd been combing through vendor invoices for a presentation when I noticed duplicate payments sent to the same third-party contractor. Convergia Digital. Twice in 1 month. Same dollar amount, different invoice numbers. At first I thought it was a glitch, but then I dug deeper. 5 payments. Same vendor. Same amount. Spaced out almost perfectly every other week. It was too neat to be accidental. I flagged it to Bryce at the time. His response? We batch payments through shell vendors to streamline campaign expenses. It's standard. I let it go. I shouldn't have, because 2 weeks before I left, I pulled every invoice that ran through our team's budget. Convergia Digital didn't exist. I Googled them, searched state business records, ran the address they'd listed. Turns out it was a UPS store in Tempe, Arizona. You want to guess who signed off on the vendor each time? Talia. This was no longer just about stolen credit or bruised egos. This was fraud. And I had proof. All I needed was one last piece to tie it together. Internal emails confirming they knew Convergia wasn't legit. I couldn't access Bryce's inbox, obviously, but Jonah still worked there. So, I asked him for a favor. Just one. I messaged him from a burner Proton mail I'd made months back when I started building my insurance backup folder. Told him exactly what to look for. Subject line vendor, Convergia search terms, approval, run through Convergia, Darren, and off the books. He sent me 3 screenshots the next day. One of them was an email from Talia to Bryce, reading, should I send the deck invoice to Stacy or just run through Convergia again? Darren said to avoid internal flags. There it was, that one line, Darren said to avoid internal flags, was enough to sink 3 people in a single blow. I didn't even have to twist the knife. The knife was already in their hands. Here's where I made it personal. I took everything, screenshots, invoices, timelines, and compiled it into a clean PDF, labeled it Anonymous Concern, Internal Billing Irregularities. Then, I attached a list of fake vendors with dates and amounts, plus notes on how the payments violated both internal policy and FTC guidelines. Then I sent it to Bravura's CEO, anonymously, the parent company's compliance department, a business journalist I knew from college who freelanced for Fast and Fair. Oh, and Talia's new employer. I found out via LinkedIn she'd quietly left 2 weeks before I did. Coward. The fallout wasn't instant. These things never are. But in the next 10 days, word started spreading. An email went out from corporate asking all team leads to review vendor approvals from the past 12 months. Then Darren suddenly took personal leave. Then Jonah texted me a single line. They're bringing in external auditors. I didn't smile. Not at first, because revenge weirdly doesn't feel like fire. It feels cold, heavy, like you're watching something collapse that you built with your own hands, even if you hated it. A week later, I got a DM on Twitter from the journalist friend I'd tipped off. He'd dug into Bravura's filings. Turns out the Convergia thing wasn't isolated. There were similar vendors tied to 2 other companies under the same umbrella. It was all being reviewed. Sources say multiple execs may be quietly exiting, he wrote. Want to go on record? I said no. This wasn't about clout. I didn't want fame. I didn't want a hero ribbon. I just wanted them not to get away with it. Now, this is the part where I admit something I hadn't told anyone, not even Jonah. Before I resigned, I emailed myself a password-protected zip file containing everything. I gave the password to my older brother Eric, who lives in Chicago and has nothing to do with any of this. Told him if anything happened, if I got sued, threatened, or harassed, he should forward the file to every media contact I listed inside. Not because I thought it'd come to that, but because when you push back against people in power, you don't do it unarmed. You do it prepared. 3 weeks after I walked out of Bravura, I got a LinkedIn message from someone I barely knew, an intern from our New York office. Hey, not sure if you heard, but Bryce, Darren, and Talia are all on leave. Word is legal's involved. You good? I just replied, yeah, I'm good. And I was, because by then I had a new job offer from a mid-size analytics firm in Seattle. Fully remote, higher pay, better culture. They actually asked me what I wanted out of the role during the interview, which should be normal, but somehow felt revolutionary. I didn't bring up Bravura. Didn't need to. You can't move forward if you're still dragging the wreckage. But I did keep the file, the whole insurance folder backed up on 2 separate drives and encrypted to hell. Not because I plan to use it, but because revenge, when done right, doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, it's just the quiet knowing that you made your point, and they heard it, even if they never admit it out loud. 2 months later, I got an email from a Bravura intern I barely remembered. Subject line, "Dude, it actually happened." Attached was a link to an article from Fast and Fair Business Weekly. Audit reveals fraud at Bravura. Multiple execs resign amid internal investigation. Reading it didn't give me the rush I thought it would. There was no dramatic music swelling in the background, no freeze-frame moment of satisfaction. I was sitting in my new apartment, half-eaten toast on my plate, wearing the same hoodie I'd slept in. And yet, there it was. Bold text, confirmed sources, formal language. A now confirmed pattern of internal financial manipulation through illegitimate vendor contracts. Resignations include VP of Marketing Bryce Carson, former CEO Darren Colton, and ex-content director Talia Vance. Just like that, gone. I read the article 3 times, not because I didn't believe it, but because it felt weird seeing names I used to say every day now written like headlines on a crime report. Names of people I once smiled at in meetings, people I sat next to at catered lunches, people I thought were smarter than me. Turns out, they weren't smarter, just louder and more shameless. After the article dropped, the fallout started leaking into my inbox. Old coworkers started messaging me. Some were careful, vague little, "Hey man, crazy times" DMs like they were testing the waters. Others were bolder. Jonah sent a single sentence. "You really lit the match." Yeah, I guess I did. It's funny though. You expect people to be grateful when you blow up a toxic system. But the reactions were mixed. Some thanked me. A few called me brave. But others, people I used to grab lunch with, acted like I'd set fire to a ship while they were still on board. One person even messaged, "Could have just quit, you know? Didn't need to take everyone down with you." That one stung. More than I expected. Because yeah, maybe I could have just quit. Slipped out quietly and let the machine grind on. But the thing is, people like Bryce only survive because everyone assumes someone else will do something. And by the time someone else finally steps up, the damage is already done. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just got tired of pretending it was okay. I spent the next few weeks adjusting to my new job. Smaller team, no cold brew taps, no hustle harder neon signs. Just actual adults doing honest work, checking in on each other, and meaning it when they said things like, "Log off early if you're tired." It was strange at first, like walking barefoot after years in tight shoes. I'd catch myself waiting for passive-aggressive emails or veiled threats in meetings. But they never came. At first, I thought it was a trick. It wasn't. Some workplaces don't require you to burn out to be seen. One day, while clearing out old files on my laptop, I came across the original Operation Goodbye Buddy. Doc, it was still there. The file name hadn't changed. I opened it and scrolled through everything. My notes, copied Slack messages, meeting timestamps, quotes from Bryce. The old rage that had fueled it felt distant now, like reading a story someone else wrote. I almost deleted it. Almost. But I didn't. Because that file wasn't just revenge. It was a record, a reminder of how far I'd let myself sink and how I'd clawed my way back out. A few weeks after the article broke, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was Bryce. His voice was tighter than usual. No podcast charm, no fake rock star pep. "Hey, Matt, look, I know we didn't end on the best terms. I don't know what you heard or think you know, but this whole thing, it got blown out of proportion. If you want to talk, I'm around." That was it. No apology, just ego still grasping for a foothold, trying to find a version of the story where he wasn't the villain. I didn't call back. Some things deserve silence more than closure. I wish I could say everything wrapped up cleanly after that. But that's not how real life works. Bravura didn't shut down. They restructured, hired new leadership, issued a bunch of corporate apologies, scrubbed their site of anything problematic. They even released a diversity statement, which felt laughably late but predictably safe. Jonah ended up quitting a month after me. We still text sometimes. He's freelancing now and seems happier. Says he wakes up without knots in his chest. That's what freedom feels like. Not loud, not cinematic, just lighter. People ask if I'd do it again. Honestly, yeah, I would. Not because it felt good, though it kind of did, and not because it fixed everything. It didn't. But because it meant something. Standing up for yourself doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes all you get is your own voice in your head, whispering, "You didn't let them win." And that's enough. There's this coffee shop I go to now, different from the one on South Congress. It's quieter, less performative. Nobody's pitching startups or taking Zoom calls on speakerphone. The barista knows my name. Last week, she asked what I do for work. I told her I'm in data analytics. She smiled and said, "Oh, cool. You look too relaxed to work in tech." And that might be the best compliment I've ever gotten. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. If you want to share your stories, please comment below. Additionally, what is your opinion on the poster's decision?